to the second half. Well, not so much the second half, but yeah, welcome back to the second half. Yeah. So before we get into what we're going to get into in the second half, and you know, I told you what it was in the very beginning. And again, like I said, just to know where we are, Facebook, SportsRap Podcast, LLC is the group page where you can get the live stream right now. If you are in a place, and I know a lot of you are still home because of the holiday, if you can't get to your screens, you can get to the TuneIn app, search Heat 100 Radio, search Lock Us In, and you can hear us there. And also you can go to heat100radio.com and you can hear us there as well. Let's see. We just got a comment in here. Stan Groovy Laws, Reggie Brasby. Happy New Year's to you guys. Blessings to you, Coach Stan. Happy New Year to you as well. Reg, classmate, my guy. Thanks for tuning in, good brother. So what I did, like I said, last week, I posed a question to some people, and I even posted it. I got a couple of answers, but didn't get a lot. So I'll bring it again. And again, like I said, once I give you this first person's answer response, I will give you what I intend to do, or give you my answer to the question. So the question I posed is, I said, we're going to scrap away, so to speak, the New Year's resolutions. And I asked everyone, Zed, thanks for tuning in, good brother. I asked people to let me know, if anything, what are you leaving in 2022? Yep. What are you taking with you, if anything, into 2023? And I mean, it's perfectly fine if you say nothing. You're saying you're leaving everything that went on in 2022 there, and you're taking nothing. You clean the slate, scrapping it, starting off new in 2023. That's fine as well. So what I'm going to do is, my one response that I thought was rather decent, pretty interesting. My brother, Tavon Diggs, he said he's leaving behind old habits. Right. He said he's bringing into the new year he's bringing new, healthy, productive habits. Right. No excuses and no self-limitations, only hustle. I think that's great. I know that's right. That's great. So that's Tavon Diggs. Shout out to you, bro, for responding and giving me some good stuff there. So for me, folks, I am leaving all of the negativity and the people or anyone that I felt had negative energy, or that brought negative energy towards me into my energy. Right. I'm leaving all of them and all of that in 2022. Right. So basically, like I said, if I feel it starting 23, if I feel the negative energy, I feel the bad vibe, just know that it's going to stop. It's going to stop my way. And I don't have to let you know that I stopped. Just know that I'm going to stop. And when you feel it, you feel it. However long it takes, you'll get it at some point if you don't get it immediately. Right. Going into 2023, right, I am bringing the hustle, right, the grind. I feel like I've been working on this show, gotten it to where it is to now, established it into a business. Right. So I feel like I've been working for the business for a long time. Now I feel I need to focus on letting the business work for me. So that's what I'm bringing in. I'm bringing in that energy and that determination to have my business work for me into 2023. That's what I'm bringing. So, you know, like I said, if you don't want to call in and say it live, you can type it in, leave the comments, or you can just, after you get it all together, when this show is over, you can post the comments there, or you can just scroll through, right, or you can just send me a message, or you can just comment on this post. Once we get done, it goes up anyway, so you can leave comments if you don't want to call in. Again, if you feel like you want to call in, 215-287-1672 is the number you can call in. So with that being said, I want to move into some Sixers talk. We got a Sixers game tonight. They play, I think, the Pelicans tonight. But I'll give you that. I'll give you all those schedules later on, you know, before we close out, whatever and whatnot. Yeah. But I want to talk a little bit about Joel Embiid. Got his first triple-double of the season the other night. Right. A somewhat bad loss to the Pelicans. Then they bounced back in the back-to-back the next night and beat a team, that they should beat in the Oklahoma City Thunder. A good win there. That's when he got the triple-double. But Joel Embiid has been on a tear. I'm going to say maybe the last 2.5 months, close to 2.5 weeks, close to a month. Now, I like what I'm seeing. I like the fact that they're now playing him in that mid-range from the foul line in. Again, I still see that it appears to me that they're working on trying to consistently cut down his three-point attempts. Yeah. And I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that. But I'm also very happy with him playing from that foul line in. The skill set that he possesses offensively as a 7-footer is very dangerous for him, for opponents at that level. And then I've also seen he's mixing in some bully ball, and I hope it stays that way. And I feel like he has a determination, or he's finally come to this conclusion that he just has to go and play. Not worry about the MVP, not worry about not getting it, not worrying about what people say about him possibly being in the run-ins or not being in the run-ins, all the nonsense that goes along with that and all the politics that goes along with that, we all know. I think it's starting to begin to click on for him where he just needs to go and play. And when he does that, he gets his head right, he goes and just plays, he can go and dominate, and he does dominate, and that's what we've been seeing. Also, this thing with him and James Harden is beginning to come together. Honestly, don't know what the reason was. Maybe it's just some rest for Harden when he didn't play in the back-to-back. But we got Tyrese Maxey back, and we got to work him back in. Some people will, for dialogue purposes, will say, yeah, you should put him right back in the starting lineup. He missed a lot of time, so there's going to be some rust there. There's also going to be that common thing where he's going to have to get back into game shape. And some of y'all might not understand what that means. It's a very big difference than playing in practice, scrimmaging with your teammates, and then you get into a game. It's different speed, different physical nature when you're playing against a legit opponent. So it's going to take a little bit. So you got to kind of fit him in where you can. And you can ride DeAnthony Melton because, in my opinion, right now, DeAnthony Melton is the best all-season acquisition. Or he's proving right now to be the best acquisition. The people will say, what about Trez? Here's the thing with Trez, and then we'll bring Paul Reed into this as well. In essence, the Sixers have one center. It's Joel Embiid. Right. Paul Reed is not a center in the NBA. Montrezl Harrell is not a center in the NBA. They both have played it. Right. The difference, Montrezl Harrell just has a little bit more experience. Right. Jackie Bridges, all the way from Texas. Thank you. Happy New Year's to you as well. You stay blessed and stay safe as well, my brother. The difference is that Montrezl has just a little bit more experience in the NBA and playing that position. So I can easily sit here and say that they play that position, but in my opinion, neither one of them are a 5. Montrezl Harrell, in my opinion, can be a 4. So I kind of feel like maybe in the playoffs or right before you get into the playoffs somewhere, you may want to try experimenting playing him and Joel together. It's possible, like you did with Andre Drummond and Joel. The issue with Paul Reed is his size, his skill set, and again, he's still raw. I think he's still catching up to the NBA game, and then it doesn't help when right now he doesn't have a defined position, a fully defined role. So it's going to be tough. And again, like I said, his raw talent is also somewhat tough to fit in because he's what I like to say, one of those tweeners where you can't say he's a 4, you can't say he's a 5, and he doesn't shoot the ball well enough to say he's a stretch 3 or even a stretch 4. He doesn't shoot the ball well enough for that. So it's hard to pinpoint where it is. And then people will, when I say this, people will go back and come back to me and say, oh, well, they got rid of a center, Charles Bassey. I told you why that happened in the beginning. And people, this is what we do here at SportsRap. We keep it 100 on Heat 100 Radio. And this is what we do. I try to give you everything, the full gist of the situations. Mm-hmm. And again, going through that situation, where the Sixers are right now, they're hoping that in a full season, this James Harden thing can be something, and we see that it can. We're looking at it now. We know that it can be something. It just has to fully come together, and it's in the process of doing that right now. Mm-hmm. The issue with Bassey and Isaiah Joe being moved was to give them some wiggle room and cap space coming up on the trade deadline, because a lot of people are saying, possibly talking about trading Tobias Harris. I even saw a report that the Knicks had internally discussed making a move or attempting to make a move for Tobias Harris. But again, like I said last year, it's going to be very, very difficult to move that contract. Mm-hmm. And what's going to happen when the Sixers field or possibly say or leak out or talk to other teams and say, oh, well, what do you think about this guy? Immediately, some names are going to come up that Sixers fans are going to immediately not want to part with. I mean, I'm parting that way too, because I'm sure immediately Tyrese Maxey's name is going to come up. And I'm not one for moving Tyrese Maxey right now because of the contract of Tobias Harris. People are going to give you something to match the money, and it's not going to be what you want. So I would, wait on that. But again, this gives the Sixers, those two moves, the Charles Bassey and the Isaiah Joe move, gives them some wiggle room where also in free agency and trade deadline, if they don't make a trade, not free agency, but in the trade deadline, there becomes the buyout market around there for teams that have players that see that their current team is not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they get a buyout and they can go become a free agent and sign somewhere else. Right. This is where the Sixers will probably focus their attention. I just saw something this morning that Eric Gordon, who has consistently been rumored to the Sixers,
for who?
Is beginning to grow thin with the progression or the lack thereof progression in Houston.
Who would y'all give up?
They wouldn't have to give up anything. He possibly could ask to be traded or possibly ask to get a buyout. Wow. And then the Sixers can pick him up once he clears waivers if he gets a buyout or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it'll help us. It'll help us with the shooting. He would definitely still have to come off the bench. He's a guard. He's a two-guard. He would definitely still come off the bench, but that would also boost our bench a little bit more. See, because when you get everybody healthy and you bring Tyrese Maxey into the starting lineup, then you've got Shake Milton, who's been playing well, and then you got DeAnthony Melton, who also has been playing very well. So now you got some depth and some scoring coming off that bench. And don't forget the minivan, George Niang, who's been playing well also. And now with that, you can kind of, and people are like overlooking the fact, and then people are also talking about in trades they're throwing Matisse Thybulle in because he doesn't give you that offensive punch that you expect from him. He's good in his role, and you have to accept him for his role. He hit a couple 3-pointers the other night. He'll hit a couple, but he's not a guy that's going to come out and look to hit 2, 3, 4 3-pointers a night. It's not him. Yeah. He'll shoot him. I mean, I give him credit for that, unlike Ben Simmons, of course. I'll give him that. He does shoot him. But I give him that. I give him the credit. He will shoot him. Right. And that type of thing will come. But also now you have the benefit of having, and this is where people are saying, why is Matisse not playing as much? What's going on with him? It's an issue now where you have a DeAnthony Melton on the roster who can do the same things that Matisse Thybulle can do as a wing defender, but you get a plus in that and you get some offense. You can get some offense that you can create for him, or you have a guy now that can create his own offense. So that was the no-brainer in DeAnthony Melton starting and giving you that. And now you see what you can have, like we said, off that bench in that situation. So, I mean, people started out in the beginning when it looked rough, it looked shaky. Then we had a couple injuries to Harden and Maxey. And I'm like, would you rather have these injuries now or in March and April when we're trying to make a playoff push? Also, I said on the flip side, the silver lining in that crowd, what it does is it gives these guys, the Shake Miltons and the D'Anthony Meltons, gives them playing time.
Okay.
So now, when they go back to the bench as reserves later on in the season, when they come in games, they know their roles now. It's not a day-to-day role with them. Now they know I can go play basketball. Because I've done what I've done while I was a starter or when I had heavier minutes. Now I got these little minutes shrunk up a little bit because of the playoffs or whatever, but I know I can just go and play basketball. I don't have to worry about coach said I need to do this. And sometimes when you get in situations like that, sometimes guys get too focused on what the coach said, and it takes away from the other things that they can do on the court. So, it's going to help. It'll help in the long run. And I think the Sixers will be fine. Like I said, I'm not sure about a trade, but I feel like they'll definitely be looking at that buyout market come trade deadline. They'll be looking at that buyout market, seeing if anybody gets waived or anything like that. Or if a trade comes up that will make them better, I think they'll do it. But again, it has to be something that's going to make them better. And I have confidence that Daryl Morey will do that in a sense of something to make them better. That's why I brought up the Eric Gordon thing, where again, like I said, I saw something this morning where he's not happy. He's apparently being reported apparently not happy. So something could happen there because he says there's no progression there. He doesn't like the progression or the lack thereof, like I mentioned, inside the organization of Houston. Robert Reeves, coach, thanks for tuning in as always. So we're going to get into this real quick because we're going to have some time to go through. Happy New Year's to you too, coach. We're going to have some time to go through the best moments of 2022, and we're going to talk a little bit about some predictions for 2023. So real quick, we're going to run through this. Like I said, it was the 5 worst free agent signings for the Philadelphia 76ers. This article was compiled by Sixers Wire. So, some people that knew a little something about what they were talking about. So some dishonorable mentions. Brian Skinner from the 2004 offseason. Surprisingly, he was with the Sixers in 02-03. He helped them reach the playoffs. Then he went to the Milwaukee Bucks. After that season with the Bucks, he returned to the Sixers on a 5-year, $25 million deal. And on that deal, he averaged 2 points, 2.6 rebounds in 24 games before being moved to the Sacramento Kings. And this was part of that deal for in the Chris Webber trade. We got Chris Webber from the Kings. Also, another dishonorable mention, the 2003 offseason. The Sixers acquired from the Houston Rockets, and I remember this trade. Kenny Thomas averaged 10 points and 8 rebounds. Once he was re-signed to a 7-year, $50 million deal, which was way, way too much money for him, he was moved to the Kings with Skinner in the Webber deal. Then we get into the actual top 5. At number 5, Kwame Brown. Say Kwame Brown. And this Kwame Brown was in, doesn't say what year it was, but anyway, he signed a 2-year, $5.7 million deal in 2012. He played a grand total of 22 games. He averaged 1.9 points, 3.4 rebounds. He never played another NBA game again. He later became the overall 5th pick in the Big Three. Number 4, one Scott Williams. All right, Sixers liked him because he was then because the GM at the time felt like he knew how to win, coming from those Chicago Bulls teams. Sixers signed him to a 7-year deal. However, he didn't bring any of that stuff he learned in Chicago here with him. He played 212 games here, averaging 5 points, 5.4 rebounds. He was traded to the Milwaukee Bucks, which when he faced off against the Sixers in the 2001 playoffs. Number 3, believe it or not, the current GM, Elton Brand. And people might laugh about this and say whatever they want to say, but Before he joined the Sixers, he was one of the best big men in the league. Elton Brand. People may not remember that with Los Angeles Clippers. He was a 20-10 guy. Okay? He was also a 2-time All-Star. Philly signed him to the, at that time, Philly Max. 5 years, $82 million. He wasn't the same player. He only averaged 13 points and 7 rebounds in 4 seasons before he was released before the final season of his contract. Number 2 was Matt Geiger. Matt Geiger, we all know this story. Matt Geiger signed a 6-year, $48 million deal in the 98 offseason. He had some bright spots, averaging 13 and 7. After that deal, his numbers declined every season, and he only played 4 games in the 2001-2002 season, his final one. The highlight, possibly, of Geiger's time here was his refusal to waive his trade kicker in 2001, and it would have been a deal that would have sent him and Allen Iverson to the Detroit Pistons. That essentially kept Allen Iverson in the city, and the Sixers went to the finals that year. Number 1. The one that I cringed about when it happened, the one that I never was in favor of the amount of money, the one that I felt was definitely not a really good contract. The Horford signing. 4 years, $109 million. There was an expected on-court fit between him and Joel that never came to fruition. Also, there was an issue with him not messing with Embiid or Simmons. The result, as we say, was, quote, dysfunctional basketball. Also, you compound that with losing Jimmy Butler. It just wasn't there. Trading Horford after Sixers, and after they lost Butler, he went to the Miami Heat, led them to the finals in 2020. Sixers waving the red flag and trading Horford after one season. The deal just looked downright awful. So that was that deal. The deal was just definitely a horrible deal. So you can hear all of this, you can see all of this. If you got any comments or anything on any of those guys that was there, or you want to throw some names in that you feel could have or should have been added to that list, please feel free to leave your comments here, and I'll get to them later, and I'll try to get to respond to some of them later on, as I do almost every Monday. So, folks, this is a Thursday. We should be at the Drake this Thursday. Of course, stay tuned all week, and I will definitely keep you up to date on what's going on with that, how that's going to play out, and all of that type of stuff. First show for the new year, if you will, again, at the Drake. So we'll have 2 first shows, if they're possible. We'll have first show here today, and then we'll have a first show at the Drake on Thursday. But again, like I said, you know what to do. Just stay tuned, stay focused on social media, and we will get all that. I'll get all that information to you as we proceed. So, first, I want to go into some of the best moments of 2022. I looked at this list, and there are some things that I feel like I could possibly add in, and if we have enough time, I may throw some of them in. I may throw some at the audience to see if anybody in the audience chimes in on some of the things that I may or may not add. So 2022 for the sports world was, what I would say,
Weird.
strange,
Weird.
Crazy, somewhat exciting. Lowell Rich, thanks for tuning in. There's a few adjectives you can use to describe the sports season, the sports year in 2022. I found this article when I got 10. And like I said, I'm going to go through these 10, and I'll give my take. Happy New Year's to you too, Lowell Rich. Thank you, brother. I'll chime in. And if I feel like I need to add something in or add another one in before we move on, I'll definitely do that. But I'm sure that once I go through these again, it'll get the juices flowing. And I don't know what I was thinking about. Right. When I first went through it, I had some other things pop in my head, and I just neglected to jot them down like I normally do. So I don't know where I was at or what I was thinking about when I did it. So It's no big deal, but we'll get to it anyway. We'll get through it. going through this list at number 10, so the Lady Huskies fall in the national championship.
Huskies, yeah.
So, some bullet points on this one. We all know UConn. We all know the legacy. We all know the history behind UConn women's basketball and their coach Gino Ariam. An 11-time national championship, 22 times Final Four coach. He's already a Basketball Hall of Fame inductee.
Yeah,
Until they ran into the juggernaut
Dawn Staley team, right?
of South Carolina, Lady Gamecocks.
Something else.
And shout outs to them. Shout outs to Philly's own Dawn Staley.
Yeah.
Doing amazing things. Like, it's
Recruiting's good, dude.
this, like, you could almost, and I know it's not the same situation. I know the dynamics are not the same as well.
Yeah.
But
She's bad, man.
for sake of a conversation, having some dialogue, I'm like 1,000% sure that at some point people could talk and have a conversation, and they could almost compare. And mind you, like I said, for dialogue and conversation purposes, you could somewhat compare what she's done at South Carolina to what Dion did at that HBCU. Now, hear me out, folks. And I know some people are probably like, what? Wait, no. Hear me out. I understand the dynamics. I said the dynamics are different, but I understand the dynamics. You got Dawn Staley, African-American sister. North Philly zone, from the inner city.
I love her, man. She's good.
Hell of a playing career. High school, college, Olympics.
She had a handle,
And has won 2 championships.
She's going to win some more, too.
But what she has done as far as being an African American female leader of young African American and other women
Amazing.
is freaking amazing. She has changed the lives of a lot of these young women in a way that sometimes basketball alone could not do.
Right. Facts.
Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying, please chime in and let me know you don't understand what I'm saying when I say that. And I said, don't feel ashamed if you don't understand what I meant. Just say you don't understand what I meant. It's not a bad thing. It may have been the way I presented it. Right. But right now, nobody's chiming in. But I'm going to try and clear it up for everybody that's tuned in right now. What I meant by saying that is, you all know how I talk here. Like me, I was a basketball player, a coach, a referee. And I love the game and I talk sports, and it ultimately led me here. Right. So I'm still attached to the game that I love. I'm still attached to sports in general, which I love. Right. But it started somewhere. And me being a player, coach. And referee, it helps in what I do now. The blueprint, yeah. So what I mean by saying that is I say basketball can bring you so many places. It can only open so many doors for you. Yep. But what I mean when I say that is the fact that, and we all know this, people that look like me are African American communities, you know what I'm getting ready to say. What I mean is these young ladies are at a major college institution. They're succeeding in the classroom and on the basketball court. And I mean, the basketball stuff got them there for the most part. But now they're succeeding in the classroom and they're graduating. So they have something to fall back on. Basketball has helped them get a top-tier education, if you will. Right. And I'm not saying that the HBCU with Dion and all those are not. They are, in my opinion, those are more top than, for me, in my opinion, for the African Americans that go there. I think the HBCUs are the top tier, and just going to one of these schools like South Carolina is top tier. So that's just my opinion. That's just how I see it. Right. But again, these young ladies have someone that looks like them. Pushes them. In a lot of instances, has come from the same upbringings as a lot of them, but has blazed the path that they're currently on, and has been where they want to be. Now, I'm not saying that they may not want to be coaches, but now we have that aspiration for them as far as the WNBA. And Dawn, if you people forget, was a pro before she became a college coach. She was a pro. She was a stellar athlete. So like I said, they are looking at someone and getting tutelage from someone that can give them every angle of it. The basketball side, the educational piece, the being a black woman in that major sport, giving it to them, like we say, from the gift horse's mouth.
Suck it like a sponge,
Giving it to them, not just because she's a coach and she cares, but someone that has the total experience encompassing every single aspect that they will need if they still have those dreams, or since they have those dreams to make it to the WNBA. And if not, they have the education that they can do something else. Or they'll have some connections from their college days and their coach that they can still somehow stay connected to the game if they don't become a coach or a player. They can do some other things. So that's what I mean when I say you can kind of compare it. And then on the side with Deion,
same thing.
It's just been mainstream with Deion because it was Deion. So we know what Deion did. So just think about that. Right. Look at what Deion did. Look at what he's doing now. And think about what I just said. So that was a good one for me. I think that was a good one. You know, and I was very happy to see that because although he does have all the accolades, and I do applaud him for his accolades, and I mean he does what he does.
Right.
I also feel like sometimes he gets a little bit too much credit. But that's just me. No, Gino R.E.M. That's just me. Yeah, number 9 on this list, and this one is kind of like goes out to my guy Baldy, because a couple years ago when we talked about how we could see the NCAA football expanding the college playoffs, Baldy brought in one of these, and the year that we talked about it was the year that TCU should have been in it, we thought, but didn't get in it. And something about strength to schedule or some nonsense, but they didn't get in. But this year they just kept with it. They wrote it out and they went through. So this year this was number 9 on this list. TCU in the college football playoffs at last. Great thing. They proved it. They deserved it. And then they went on Saturday and they showed it again. They showed it and proved it again by beating Michigan and advancing to the national title game against the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. So that was a good one for me as well. And again, I think that, like I said, stems back for us a couple years back when we felt like they should have been in a few years ago, but they didn't get in, some technicalities and whatnot and the popularity issues. And I mean, it's amazing, not to me, but it's amazing for some people. But I'm okay with it, and I think it's about time that Alabama was not in the top 4.
Yeah, I'm tired of it.
And I think they were ranked number 5 or 6 total at the end of the season. So it's good, because that dominance there, it was just starting to get tired. It's like you need some new blood, some new stuff going on. Let's see. Pop goes the record. Greg Popovich breaking the record. That's not really a big one for me. I know who Pop is. We know his history. You've seen it. So, Golden State versus Boston for the NBA title last year. Don't know how I feel about that one. Boston did surprise a lot of people last year with it making it to that finals. And then it was kind of spoiled. That whole scenario kind of got spoiled going into this season when the situation with their head coach came out. And I say that because of what he did with that team in his first year. Right. And now it's pretty much like all for naught because of the situation. He's not even there anymore. And he could arguably not even be coaching in the NBA at all anymore. Wow. So, it is what it is. Let's see. Los Angeles finally wins it all. So this is, and I'm not talking about the Lakers. We're talking about the Rams this time, folks. So don't jump the gun. Some of you Lakers fans that might have been tuned in.
You see what
The
happened?
Rams win it all. The Rams are now in that honeymoon Super Bowl hangover. And believe it or not, like when I look at this Rams team now,
Terrible.
with the talent that they had, I think,
They fell on bad.
just in my opinion, I think this is one of the worst
You said it already.
fall offs from winning the Super Bowl
Yeah, they got the most losses
ever. Like the Eagles won and they got bad, but they didn't immediately get this bad.
Yeah,
It took the Eagles another 2 years before they got to this point. I mean, they got through a season and then made it back to the playoffs.
Yeah, they're
Just got knocked out. But then that following season, just the bottom fell out. So it took them 2 seasons to fully affect it, and then it didn't last long because right after that, they kind of picked it up a little bit, and they've been on the ascend ever since then. But the Rams are just like in that black hole right now, and it feels like kind of like that dream you have when you're just falling, and you just falling. It seems like they just falling and falling and falling. And it's crazy because they got a lot of talent over there. They got some talent, but I don't know, like the injuries and everything hit them pretty good. And it's like it made a very, very solid immediate effect on them because they had to resort to bringing in Baker Mayfield.
Oh, he's terrible.
So we know how that is. Ovechkin, at number 5, Ovechkin surpasses Gordie Howe. Yeah. So that's a great thing. Alex Ovechkin, like arguably one of the greatest to ever do it. Past another one of the arguably greatest to ever do it, Gordie Howe, on that goals list in the NHL. Another one that was really good for me, although they beat my Phils, but because it was Dusty Baker and it was an African-American male, Dusty Baker and the Astros, Dusty Baker got his championship, his World Series ring. Again, I'm not really mad about it. I'm a little disturbed. But I know the reality. It's like we had to use our pitching in a way, well, it got better. But they had to use their bullpen, and they ultimately put their pitchers in positions that they were uncomfortable with or unfamiliar with.
Right.
And it took its toll. Because, like, it wasn't like they blew us out any of those games. We were in the line mostly all those games. Yeah. It just came down to the point where when crucial pitching was needed, they had it and we didn't. Right. Because we had a lot of our pitchers who would have been in those crucial moments had to perform and play in unfamiliar positions in times during games. The Brittany Griner saga at number 3. Another story that, I talked about from the very beginning. And I saw some things on social media. I talked to some other people on social media about it. And I told people how I felt from the very beginning. I felt like she would have been a pawn. And then we went through the whole situation. And then later on, after the fact, people began to chime in and say, oh, well, we hope she's not being a pawn. And I said, she's been a pawn from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't as prevalent to a lot of you as it was to me. And I mean, I understand because I do this. So I had to dig a little bit more than the average Joe or the average person just reading the article that was presented to him. I had to do more than just read whatever was on the surface. Mm-hmm. So I dug a little bit more and I got a little bit more information. Mm-hmm. Then we moved into the stage where she was released. And then immediately when she got released, it was mixed opinions. People were happy. Yeah, of course you're happy because I was happy because she was released. Because I felt like she didn't need to be there in that situation. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, because of the situation, the accused or the alleged incident, and because of her being there every year to help that team win games and do other things. So it was some mixed views at that point for me anyway. But when she got released, a lot of people immediately were questioning why wasn't the other prisoner, the gentleman that was there, that's been there longer than her, is still there. Why wasn't he released? And I said to people, I even said it here, I said, it's sad to say, but for me, on the outside looking in, reading between the lines, it's just my thought. And I'm not saying this is definitely how it's going to play out. Yeah. But when you look at that situation, and you say the U.S. had a major hand in bringing Brittany Griner home, mm-hmm. It's beneficial for them. Mm-hmm. monetary, public-wise, whatever. It could be beneficial for her as well because she can do the book and all of that and the series and all that, anything like that. She can do that if she wants to. But when you look at it, and you look at those two particular prisoners, Brittany Griner and that other gentleman, where's more marketable value? Even if it's indirect for the United States, where's the more market value? I also brought it to the scenario, the other avenue that people can go, once Brittany decided and announced that she will be playing in the WNBA. That is immediately going to be a revenue booster for the WNBA. It's going to bring more people in the stands. And it's going to bring more attention. It's going to bring the media attention. It's going to be the attention that I'm so sorely in favor of them getting. I just didn't want it to be this way, and I say that because this way is not the right way. And there are going to be some people that are definitely going to come because they feel like they're supporting her by going to a game or something like that. Whatever happens, it happens. But that's going to happen. People are going to go feel like they're supporting her and they're going to show up for these games. But ultimately, it's going to help the pocketbook and the media attention for the WNBA. Like I said, which I am in favor of. I just hope that it could have came from a different angle.
Yes.
And I'm still not saying that it will be that. I said those are the avenues that can be presented in the situation. And ultimately, again, I say, in that that just means that between those two prisoners, more benefits can come from bringing Brittany Griner home than the other gentleman. I forget his name, but you kind of see where I'm going with that. Number 2, Messi finally wins the World Cup. Yeah. Great for him. Arguably one of the best that ever done it, or the best that ever done it. Pele. Yeah. Arguably. Currently, the best that has done it, the best that's doing it. So it's somewhat fitting, if you will, that he gets that he gets the thing there.
I like Messi.
Yeah. So that's that. And then number one, Tom Brady's fall from grace. We've seen it all year long. We've seen that Tom Brady is not the Tom Brady that, for lack of a better word, you have been used to seeing.
So-called GOAT.
Tom Brady has shown his age in his play. It's definitely shown where they are now. I mean, they got up and they won a division, but
money thing.
Like, their record is not great. It's I don't even think it's an actual winning record. If it is, it might be 500 or like 1 over 500. But that whole division is bad. Yeah. So, it's not so much of a discredit or whatever, if you will, but like you said, it's one of those things where
it's a money grab. That's all it is.
They brought him back, he retired and he unretired and he came back, but we all see that he's not the same Tom Brady that people had been used to seeing in the long run. So moving up next, so that was your 2022 best moments, and before we get into the next part, like any other things I'm thinking now, anything I can think of that could have been a big moment in sports in 2022. Wow. It's been a long year.
Yeah. Can't forget nothing.
For me, I could throw in the Phillies run. Yeah, and I mean, that's just local. Yeah, but too. I could throw in the Phillies run because
they barely made the playoffs. Remember?
They were coming down the stretch. They were in, then they were out, then they were back in, right. Then they were like neck and neck.
Then they went a long stretch, remember?
And then
boom,
something happened. They changed managers that way. They changed managers, and then they went on this hell of a run. And end up making the World Series. And when this all started, you can go back and scroll to around the times. The videos are here. It's video proof when I said a lot of this stuff. What happened was the baseball story, revitalization story, could have been written on that alone. And I say that like coming back from 2020 the pandemic and what everything that baseball went through with the threat of the strike and all of that kind of stuff, how they bumped it up. But with that Philly story, and like I was saying, they change managers and they go on this hell of a run. Then they get to the wild card, right? The team that they pass in the wild card, they end up playing.
Right.
The Padres. No, they hit the Cardinals first.
Was the
Cardinals first. It was the Cardinals first because they had ended up getting in the wild card. They go to the Cardinals and they sweep the Cardinals.
Then they played
Then they come in and they play the Padres.
Then they played the Braves.
And in the sense, and that's where it started. When they made it to the Cardinals and swept the Cardinals, that's where it started. And then you go into the team that they were neck and neck with.
Right.
They play them, and then they beat them.
Right.
Then they move on, and they play the Braves, the defending champions. And they beat the Braves.
Yeah.
So this story is going. Yeah. Then they go up on the Astros, and they hang tough with the Astros. Give the Astros somewhat of a scare early in that series.
That third series, all them hit and runs.
So that story
alone, yeah, that's my year.
Can be added into that list. Excuse me, and it can also be one of the best baseball revitalization stories as far as the league and a team in a long time. Long time.
Yeah, long time. Next year too.
So yeah, that's my 2020. If I think of anything else, I'll blurt it out or throw it
Val, how you doing, Val?
in there, whatever. So moving on, another thing I saw, some bold predictions for
what's up, Val?
2023. It's 36, so I don't know, depending on how much time we spend on each one, if we go through every single one of them.
Right.
But we'll try and get through as many as we can. So we'll start at number 1. Georgia will win the National Football Championship.
You said Georgia?
Yeah. They're playing TCU.
Who you like?
I think Georgia's going to win again.
I think TCU going to put up a fight.
And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I just think
that defense
that Georgia's been there and done it.
Experience. TCU going to put up a fight now.
So I think Georgia will outlast them in that. So for me, they say bold predictions. For me, that's not really too much of a bold prediction.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure once we see the
talent,
once we see the odds and everything, Georgia's going to be favored. I don't know about how many
6
points. But like I said, what I've seen from TCU and what I've seen from them in the past couple of years, like I said, they're not going to just go there and give them the game. They're going to play.
They got speed.
They're going to play. So that's that. LeBron James will be traded.
Well. You think so?
This is a good one. I don't know who's still tuned in, so if anybody else is tuned in, please check that. That's a bold prediction that LeBron James will be traded. I don't think that's going to happen.
The money thing. He's staying there.
I think
he's going to retire there.
I think that
Probably Cleveland.
There would be a stronger possibility of Westbrook or possibly even Anthony Davis being traded before LeBron.
LeBron's staying.
And LeBron is up there in age.
Yeah, almost 40. Tell me he gonna play till he's 45.
He doesn't bring to the table right now what some of these other teams that might be contenders would actually need, and it would be tough for them to figure out how to use him. A lot of the teams have gotten younger, and there's still a mix of veterans or whatever. But when you talk about a guy like LeBron, and you talk about his mileage, his career, and then you talk about his age right now, where could you possibly facilitate a trade for him and get some valuable pieces back in that instance? This one is a little funny. Number 3 they have here, they say the NFL long snappers will join the labor revolution. I don't know about that one. I think that one is a stretch. Although they are somewhat unsung heroes in a lot of ways in the NFL, but I don't think they're going to make a major stink about that. I mean, some of those guys could arguably be happy to be on an active NFL roster and be cool with their role. So that's a little bit of a stretch for me. I'm not sure about that one as a bold prediction. Number 4, the NBA will adopt a new CBA without any drama. Well, this one could be a possibility. Could be a possibility. I say that because of the change in regime as far as player representation. The current player representation for teams and individuals, as far as I'm talking like Jaylen Brown and CJ McCollum, are players who have their brother's best interest at heart, but they're also in tune with everything that's going on politically and all of that stuff, and how that political issue incorporates into the NBA. So they're in tune with what's going on. So I think they will help in devising a new CBA. And I think some things will be more favored to some of the players, if you will, because of that situation. And they represent the players very well. Like I said, they're knowledgeable of what's going on in the league, what they're hearing from their constituents, and they're also knowledgeable about what's going on off the court and outside of the actual players and in the locker room. So I think that's a good thing, and I think that is a possibility. The Bills will win the Super Bowl.
False. No, who told them that?
This one?
Nah, they not winning.
I don't know.
They're better than the 90s team, though, Dave.
I think
Josh Allen need to cut down the interceptions.
As far as an organization with the Bills, I feel like they could be feeling like they owe Kansas City something.
But they ain't winning it.
I don't know if you can truly now, with the way the NFL is set up now, I don't truly feel that you can get to a Super Bowl and arguably win in a massive blowout or in a high-powered shootout. I just don't think that happens in the Super Bowl. Where, you have some Super Bowls where some points have been scored, but it wasn't like we've seen games with the Bills and Kansas City and the Bills and the Chargers. Like those shootout games where both teams are scoring 40 or almost 50 points. I don't think, we've seen games where Super Bowls where teams have scored 30, something like that, and it's been back and forth a little bit. But I don't think it's been to that magnitude, that high-powered scoring back and forth, or just a high-powered blowout where somebody goes and scores 30, 40-some points, and the other team only scores somewhere between 3, 7, and 10. So I haven't seen that. But I just don't think that type of situation will play itself out in the Super Bowl. But, I mean, there's always a chance. You say that always going in. There's always a chance. There's always a chance. Again, like I said, I don't feel like they have the total package to possibly be able to grind out a game and have a game somewhat similar to what was the Saints game the Eagles game yesterday, where they could hold the ball for 30, 35 minutes and be successful and score points, and then the other team not. So I don't. That's a possibility, but not so much. Coco Gauff will win her first major. I definitely can see that as a very solid prediction. She's definitely right. She's now up to number 7
in the world.
In singles, and number 4 in doubles.
Okay.
So she's definitely moving up, and I think that can be what happens again. Wow. Number 7. Kevin Durant will demand a trade again.
Possible.
So, this one,
you need that one?
I could see happening.
Kyrie, all depends on what Kyrie do, right?
Not even so much that. I just feel like
he cannot play all these games.
I feel like they're. Oh, let's first say they're on a hell of a run right now. The Brooklyn Nets, they are. They're playing very, very well right now. I give them that. Okay. Yeah. But we know we're getting ready to go into the second half of the season. Not wishing anything on any players, but we know the suspect possibility of some injuries. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's all part of the game, and we know, like we say, we talk about guys' history. Right. Kevin Durant has that history. Yeah. It just follows him. It is what it is. Now, like I said, I'm not wishing anything happen. I'm wishing anything happen. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just giving you the history of him, and that's what we are. That's the history of him. How you doing, Kim? Him asking to be traded again
possible
is very well possible because I do not believe that Kyrie Irving will be back with the Brooklyn Nets next season.
Same here. What's up, Ken?
At that point, I don't think he will be enough. And I'm thinking Ben Simmons with Ben Simmons and KD. That won't work.
No, it's not going to work at all.
I mean, and there's also a possibility that Ben Simmons could be traded before the trade deadline or whatever. But that won't work. Mm-hmm. So let's just play devil's advocate and say that happens. Let's just say Ben Simmons doesn't work out. Maybe not traded, but just doesn't work out. All right?
Nah.
Kevin Durant is still there. Kyrie Irving is no longer there. Mm-hmm. Now there's a Batman, if you will, but there's nowhere near a Robin.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
So, like I've said before, like the makeup of that roster, beyond Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving,
right?
It's not a whole lot there. Mm-hmm. People will argue for Seth Curry, but we know who Seth Curry is. Yeah. Unfortunately, like I mentioned to 1,000 people, when he came here, the makeup of the roster, he was the best at his position, and ultimately put him in the starting lineup. Yeah, and he did perform while he was here. Yeah. So there's no ill feelings there. Mm-hmm. He did perform while he was here. It's just a situation that happened, presented itself, and he took full advantage of that situation. Mm-hmm. That's just how that played out.
Right.
But looking at that Nets roster, like I said, that Nets roster, like, you lose one or two of those guys. Rick Davila, thanks for tuning in. You lose one or two of those guys, and then it's like, all right, what do we got? And this somewhat stems from some stuff I talked about last week when we talked about James Harden, when he was asked about,
right.
Well, maybe not last week, maybe the week before that, when he was asked about his situation and why he left. He said it was dysfunctional. And he didn't mean just players, but he meant all the way across the board. So, and we even saw that from Kevin Durant in his initial trade request, where he felt like there was some dysfunction, and then somehow he retracted.
Right.
But at number 7, Kevin Durant will demand a trade again. I could possibly see that. Like I said,
he might stay.
I don't believe that Kyrie Irving will be there next year. Mm-hmm. I'm very, very uncertain about the situation with Ben Simmons, because in this major run that they've been on, you haven't heard much about him in the mix at all. Now, somebody can chime in and correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, but you haven't heard much of his name called in this run. It's all been Kyrie and KD.
Basketball. Yeah.
So, again, with Kevin Durant, I believe that could happen.
Pretty much.
And it may not be until like maybe the summer or something like that, but it's still the year. So I believe that could possibly happen.
Yeah, I think so too.
And both of them might end up being gone. Because like I said, I don't believe that the Nets are going to bring Kyrie Irving back.
Me either.
The Giants will pursue a high-profile free agent quarterback. Well, that's a thought, but
Danny Dimes ain't going to be there anymore.
But who? Who's the high-profile quarterback that they can go after?
No, I heard real quick. Can I chime in? They said him and Barkley going to get re-signed.
But who is the high-profile quarterback that they're referring to?
That? I didn't hear that.
These are just bold predictions.
I'm sorry.
So who is the high-profile quarterback? I mean, somebody give me some names. I mean, high-profile quarterbacks. If they high profile quarterbacks, then that
Yeah.
means they're doing something where they are.
Right.
And why would they go and start over
To
at the Giants? It doesn't make sense.
They made the playoffs this year.
The NBA will announce an expansion. I think that's going to happen. There's been several years of talk about bringing another franchise back to Seattle.
Yeah.
I also saw some stuff where I think it's like Mexico or somewhere where there could be some teams. So I think that could finally